Part 3. Check out the second part, Big Fig Newton. You know, the quote, and let the name of Israel be remembered no more at all, part of their Psalms 83 manifesto. Question. Remember how I said the original Zionists were taking over just like the evangelicals and are now working together to bring about theocratic rule to hand over to their Messiah, thus fulfilling prophecy of being the man who destroyed entire cities? You remember, it was during our Secular Jew series when they exposed the takeover actually took place, knowing full well they and all of their wicked enterprises will be destroyed in the process. They finally broke ranks and told the world the secular Jews in America, thus the world, absolutely hate what has become of their beloved Zionism. And then later, we added the fact, as we will update later, the top military rabbi indoctrinating his future soldiers to admire Nazism and prepping them to commit self/civil genocide. I told you then we were way down the rabbit hole unawares. I can't hear your answers because this is a video. But if you remember those discoveries, including the Zionist takeover and the prophecy of eliminating the name of Israel forever, check this out. According to Wikipedia, under State of Judea, quote, the State of Judea is a proposed Hellenic state in the West Bank put forward by Israeli Jewish settlers. After the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, declared the existence of a Palestinian state in 1988, some settlers activists, primarily Kohanist, remember that, Kohanist, I'll spell it when we get there, feared that international pressure would lead Israel to withdraw from the West Bank and sought to lay the groundwork for an Orthodox Jewish state in the West Bank if this came to pass. Listen closely. The establishment of this state was announced in a Jerusalem hotel on December 27th. Stop, bingo! So as you can see, by them saying, quote, the establishment of this state was announced in a Jerusalem hotel on December 27th, that can only mean, whether well known or not, there is a serious proposal to officially create a state of Judea. But I want you to pay extra special attention to who is trying to establish the official state. Yep, the Kohanist, Kahanist. You know, the terrorist political party who, as you will quickly hear, would eventually usurp Zionism to make the theocratic laws we see Netanyahu currently making. Let's continue for more clues, shall we? Quote, veteran Kohanist Michael Ben-Horon was declared president of the state of Judea. In January 1989, several hundred activists met and announced their intentions to create such a state if Israel withdrew. The idea was revived following the unilateral disengagement plan, which resulted in the forcible withdrawal of Jewish settlers from Gaza by Israeli Defense Force in 2005. In 2007, Rabbi Shalom Dov Wapop suggested the establishment of a new state in the West Bank in the event of Israeli withdrawal. Example. So as you can clearly hear, as of 2007, and with the upcoming Trump administration's "we will break the Palestinians' arms if they refuse the deal" peace plan on the horizon, with much Israeli political backing, there is a plan for an alternative country called the State of Judea in the political and public sphere. So I guess the only prudent thing to do now is see what's really happening with those who are promoting this uprising, and most importantly, see if we hear any similarities in rhetoric with the Christian dominionist Luciferians. So saying that, according to Wikipedia under Kohanism. K-A-H-A-N-I-S-M. Quote, Kohanism is an extremist Jewish ideology based on the views of Rabbi Meir Cohen, founder of the Jewish Defense League and the Koch Party in Israel. Cohen maintained the view that the majority of Arabs living in Israel are enemies of Jews and Israel itself, and believed that a Jewish theocratic state where non-Jews have no voting rights should be created. The Koch Party has been banned by the Israeli government, and the U.S. State Department has labeled it a foreign terrorist organization. Stop! So, as you can plainly hear, those who advocate for the state of Judea are just as radical and extreme as our Christian dominionist cult. Oh yeah, don't worry about them being banned as a group. Why? Because they simply won seats with other political parties. And to prove this fact, even though we are told America and our Jewish brothers and sisters share values, check out this recent headline. According to NPR, etc. Other headlines also. Under, Netanyahu says Israel is, personal quote, nation state of the Jewish people and them alone. March 11, 2019. Example. So hopefully you are beginning to see the fingerprints of the coup de grace we are looking for. Let's continue for more clues, shall we? Oh yeah. Remember the Nazi propaganda and the social description the top military rabbi considered worthless, weak, and deserving of neutralization? You remember when he said Israel should be a theocracy, his hatred for democracy, his willingness to kill if he deems it ideologically justifiable, his absolute disdain for secular Jews with their abominable assimilation, his, let's say, unorthodox view on what they call the diaspora, and the entire reason he believed the Holocaust happened in the first place. You know, the Germans considered them corrupting puny humans with no true power. Thus, the Germans didn't respect the Jews gangster and did what must be done. I can't hear your answers because this is a video. But if you remember, we read that transcript. I'm understanding now the written transcript was more in depth than the chopped and screwed video transcript I read from. But if you remember that video, let's continue to hear the core beliefs of those considering a state of Judea to see if they match what the official military rabbi believes in his heart to be true. Quote, while it is difficult to define Kohanism in an official manner, the term has come to denote the controversial position espoused by Rabbi Meir Cohen. Cohen's position spanned a broad range of subjects. All right, the first one, Aleha, which is the return. Cohen believed that every Jew should live in Israel. Bingo! He said that. Next one, anti-Semitism. Cohen believed that anti-Semitism should be fought immediately and by all means necessary. Bingo! He said that. Next one, democracy. Cohen wrote that democracy was the best form of government for those who lacked a divine truth and a standard of good and evil. Bingo! He said that. Next one, hate and violence. Quote, Cohen believed that hate and violence were terrible, but terribly necessary at the right time and place. Bingo! The next one, Holocaust. Cohen felt that the history of the Holocaust should be taught to Cohen felt that the history of the Holocaust should be taught to youth with all of the lessons that it implied, including the need to fight spiritual assimilation, the need to physically defend the Jewish people, and the importance of leaving what he termed the exile. Bingo, bingo! He said all of that. Next one, Israel. Cohen proposed that the state of Israel should enforce Jewish law as codified by Maimonides, under which non-Jews who wish to dwell in Israel would have three options. One, remain as resident strangers with all rights but national ones, which would require non-Jews to accept resident stranger status with all rights but political ones. Those who are unwilling to accept such a status will be required to leave the country with full compensation, and those who refuse to do even that will be forcibly removed. Mega bingo! Next one, Judaism. Cohen stressed that Jewish is beautiful. He felt that the reform and conservative movements have been the leading cause of assimilation due to their discontinuation of the belief in mass revelations, which is revealing or disclosing of some form of truth or knowledge through communications with a deity or other supernatural entity or entities, which can only mean the belief in mass possession. Bingo! As the cornerstone of Jewish theology. Again, bingo! Next one, respect. Quote, Cohen stated that there is nothing more important than respect, and he added that only one who respects himself can end up respecting others. Bingo! Next one, unity. Cohen felt that Jewish unity was of the utmost importance, and he believed that everything should be done in order to avoid a Jewish civil war. He was prepping them for self-genocide. Bingo! Quote, the central claim of Cohenism is the belief that the vast majority of Arabs of Israel are now, and they will continue to be, enemies of Jews and Israel itself, and that a Jewish theocratic state governed by halakha, absent of a voting non-Jewish population that includes Israel, Palestine, areas of modern-day Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, should be created. Stop. Bingo! Why bingo, you ponder? Because what they just named is called Greater Israel. Guess what? The Trump administration peace plan the Palestinians cannot refuse is reported to include land swaps with these very same countries. Besides, remember our Setting Up the Borders of Esau series? You remember? Where Saudi Arabia and the exact same countries are in the process of building the future $500 billion financial hub of the Middle East called NEOM. But because I'm colored, thus unbelievable in your sight, I will end this section of our series with a couple of headlines that should seal the deal. According to the Times of Israel, under Netanyahu and the Cohenist, a moral compromise that may ruin his legacy. Subtitle, few politicians will put moral concerns above political ones unless they fear public shame. The Otzma Yehudit deal may exact a higher cost than the Prime Minister realizes. February 25th, 2019. Next one. According to Herzarts, under Following controversial deal with Kohanis. Religious Israelis are seeking a new political home. Subtitle: Habiyat Yahudi has long been the home of religious Zionists, but its electoral alliance with Azura Yahudit, which is the Kohanist, at the urging of Benjamin Netanyahu, has proved the final straw for some party members. That was February 27th, 2019. Example: bingo! Ha! What can you say? Takeover complete. The way I figure, just like any other conglomerate that's caught with their hands in the cookie jar, to erase their previous legacy along with their planned slaughter from the public's perception over time, the Israelis will rebrand themselves under the guise of peace and use the new and improved anti-Semitism law being flung around today like frisbees to relegate the name Israel as a trope that harbors harsh feelings, thus successfully fulfilling their master's pledge to, quote, let the name of Israel be remembered no more at all. Israel. Israel! Israel. Endure.